Uh,
Yeah, okay. Welcome, everybody. I see some participants are already logged in, but it is 2:30, so we're gonna get started. Thanks for being here. Hopefully you're in the right spot. This is the Window of Tolerance Foundation Building webinar with Heartwood Healing Center. Um, Yeah, so before we dive into the actual content, Michaela's just going to give a brief kind of logistics rundown.
yeah, so welcome everybody. I'm Michaela. I'm the Engagement and Service Coordinator here at Heartwood, and I kind of organize these webinars. So as we go, there will be the opportunity for you to ask questions. Along the top of your screen, you should see a button that says Q&A, and that option will give you the opportunity to ask questions anonymously. So as things come up for you, feel free to enter them there, and I will read them out to Brynne and Lara. Even if your name shows up for you, it will not be read out, so it will not be included in the recording of this webinar. All of our webinars are recorded and posted on our website after the fact. So if you do have to pop out at any time, don't worry about what you'll be missing, because within the next week or so, you'll be able to find it under learning resources. And if you have any issues as we go, you can also post it in the Q&A, and hopefully I'll be able to deal with those as we go. And I will pass it over to Brynne and Lara.
Awesome, thank you. So we just have a brief agenda. Lara's gonna go over the overview.
Yeah, so our agenda for today, so we're going to start off with land honoring from Brynne, and then provide a little bit of a background on who me and Brynne are. Then we'll dive into like what the concept of window of tolerance actually is, where it came from, as well as how trauma can affect our window of tolerance. Next, we'll break it down a bit further, talk a bit more about what these different states can look and feel like, as well as why this information is important to know and how it can help you. And then after that, we'll talk a bit more about some of the ways you can practice expanding your window of tolerance. And then we'll kind of go through a little activity that we can do together as an exercise that kind of works on expanding your window of tolerance in the moment. And then after that, yeah, we'll have a survey as well as sources. But yeah, like Michaela said, if you have any questions throughout, feel free to send them our way and we'll do our best to answer them.
Awesome. Yeah, so as mentioned, all of Heartwood programs, groups, webinars, workshops always start with a land honoring. And so it's on the screen there, but I am going to read it out as well. And so this is the agency's most updated land honoring. So with gratitude, humility, and respect, we recognize and honor that Heartwood Healing Center is located on the traditional territories of the Anishinaabeg, Innu, and Oceti-Sakowin, and on the homeland of the Red River Métis. We recognize the historical and ongoing violence of colonization, respect the original treaties made to live respectfully and in harmony on this land, and commit to working toward reconciliation. The water that runs through our taps comes from Shoal Lake, and as a place for healing, we have committed to walking with those with whom we are privileged to work and understand that Indigenous peoples have been traumatized mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually as a result of colonization. And we commit to unlearning and learning, to building alignment with the TRC calls to action, the 2S MMIWG calls to justice, UNDRIP, and working toward uncolonizing and anti-oppressive practice within our organization. And on the screen, you can see a image of an art piece entitled Turtle Island by an Indigenous artist named Patrick Hunter. Just thought it was a beautiful piece to showcase there. So we are going to do just a brief kind of about us, who we are. So my name is Brynne. I use she, her pronouns. I am both an MSW student as well as a long-term therapist and short-term counselor here at Heartwood. I started with the agency as a student and then have been working here for a couple months as well. So it's an honor to be doing this work and to connect with the clients and people that we get to connect with daily. Um, yeah, that's a very brief little intro, and we'll let Lara share.
Yeah. So my name's Lara. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a student therapist here at Heartwood, currently completing my Master's of Counseling Psychology. I've been here for about 8 months now. I'm coming to the end of my term here. And yeah, to kind of echo what Brynne said, it's such an honor to be able to connect with people, and learn other people's stories and hear from everybody. And so yeah, I'm really glad to get to connect with everybody today.
So now that you know a little bit about who we are, we're gonna dive into the topic and hopefully why you're all here.
All right. So, what is the window of tolerance? So, the window of tolerance is a concept that was developed by Dr. Dan Siegel. And so, basically, what it is it describes the optimal zone for a person to function in their everyday life. So, what that means is that within this zone, individuals can effectively manage and cope with emotions they experience in their day-to-day life. This window of tolerance allows us to respond to everyday demands and stress. It also represents like the comfort zone where we can self-soothe and self-regulate our emotional states. So, as an example, if you try and think about a time where you felt balanced and calm and relaxed and in control, take a minute and think about it. Maybe you even feel that way right now, hopefully. And so, do you remember feeling like calm, grounded, alert, safe? That's kind of the feeling that comes with being in your optimal zone or within your personal window of tolerance. And on the slide here, there is an image of Dr. Dan Siegel, who kind of came up with this concept originally.
And so before we dive in to some of the photos and deeper into what this topic and concept looks like, just wanted to give a brief note on language. And we've included here the part of the Heartwood Healing Center harm reduction statement. Harm reduction can be used in many different contexts, whether it's substance use, coping skills, but it's also relevant here with the intention of reducing harms. So we offer support, advocacy, dignity, and respect to all, continuously challenge our personal biases, and meet clients where they are at without judgment and assumptions. We recognize and affirm that we all have choice and that we all take risks in our lives and understand that complex trauma removes choice at times. And so, really, emphasizing this idea of choice and power. Um, Wanting to highlight that all the available resources and on the literature revolving around window of tolerance use the terms hyper and hypoarousal. This could be completely neutral for you, but there is a potentially triggering nature to these terms in the context of CSA. So we're going to refer to these states as hyper and hypoactivation. Um, and these can be used interchangeably. You are completely entitled to use whatever term you connect with, however it best fits your experience, but did want to highlight that while we are in our healing journey, we do really want to emphasize empowerment and choice and finding the things that work best for us. So with that in mind, we're going to kind of dive right in. So hopefully what you can see on your screen are two visuals, and this is what the window of tolerance will look like if you're given a handout. I'm really big on metaphor, so I personally really like the idea that you can kind of visualize it in however way that works for you. And so kind of to build off of what Lara was saying, the idea of when we are in our window of tolerance, this is when we are balanced and calm, we feel relaxed, we're able to function effectively, and kind of take on the challenges that life throws at us. So you can envision it as a window. This image specifically, the source is from a website called Mind My Peelings, like P instead of an F. And they use a river, kind of like a water, that little cute unicorn floaty floating down the stream. Um, and so the idea with this concept is that when we've experienced trauma or extreme stress, our window can shrink and it can become smaller. And that's kind of when those states of dysregulation and activation are going to occur. And so if you kind of think of your body, head to toe, we can expand upwards. And Lara's going to get more into all of these states, but that's kind of what those up and down arrows also represent, that we can go into a state of hyper activation or down into hypo, so lower activation. And so the idea with this kind of the more zoomed in photo is that there's different fluctuating states. And so every human being, every individual has a completely different range of emotions and how we express them. We're not kind of using this as like, if you're and outside of this, there's no norm. We're not like prescribing anything. This is just a general thing that you can hopefully apply to yourself. But we're all going to have a different size window, and that's going to depend on so many different things: our experiences, quality of sleep, the our environment, if we've had food or water that day. Um, and so those red dots kind of signify that we're going to experience dysregulation and stress. That's a natural part of the human experience. Sometimes it's going to be smooth sailing and we're going to be within that window. And other times, that red jagged line is going to represent a whole bunch of fluctuations of our emotional experiences. And so the idea with presenting this tool and kind of why we wanted to do this webinar is that we all have a capacity to expand our window and to build a capacity to tolerate hard things. And so hopefully it's not too overwhelming. And we're going to kind of go deeper into these pictures and what they mean. But that is really a window of tolerance in a nutshell. And
So Brynne, we did just have a
yeah,
question come in.
awesome.
Someone asked if your window of tolerance would be considered like your baseline.
Oh, that's a really good question.
That is a really good question.
I think your baseline can change and fluctuate. And so if that feels true for you, then yeah, absolutely. And also I think what your maybe baseline of emotional capacity is going to change and fluctuate. Maybe you are currently engaging in therapy, counseling, support services. Yeah, and it's just a little bit bigger. Absolutely. Maybe you're more at the beginning of your journey. Um, and yeah, your baseline is a little bit smaller. So I think that could totally be a way to understand it, if that's what makes sense for you. But I also think that that can fluctuate and change. Like that doesn't mean that it's fixed that way forever, if that makes sense. I know,
Great.
Lara, would you add anything?
Yeah, no, I think I agree with what you said. I think baseline is kind of like the average of kind of where you sit at. So it depends a lot on, like what's going on in your life, environmental factors, history, trauma history. And so, yeah, so hopefully, I guess your baseline would be within your window of tolerance. And so, you know, the way where you're sitting is kind of in between hyper and hypoarousal at like the average. But yeah, I think that's kind of a good way to kind of go about understanding it as well, as kind of like your baseline should be in there somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like you can go up and down, right? So
Mm-hmm. I also think like neither of us are psychologists or kind of in the deep into the like diagnostic community, but I think baseline is
mhm.
also a term that you might hear kind of more in the like medical or psychiatry community, so that totally makes sense. Yeah, if that's kind of where you're getting some of the language in these concepts, then yeah, totally.
Mm.
This is very much a like take what works for you and leave what you don't connect with, kind of thing. So yeah,
Mm.
hopefully that answers that person's question.
Mhm.
Cool.
Thank you.
No problem. All right. So kind of in the theme of different visuals and different ways to conceptualize this, we want to look at how does trauma affect our window of tolerance. And so as an agency, we practice from a trauma-informed approach and recognize that trauma does impact our lives in very significant ways, but also in very individual ways. So when balance is interfered with, like that kind of emotional state of homeostasis is interfered with, either due to trauma or extreme stress, we can end up leaving our window of tolerance. And so this is where you begin to dysregulate and experience those typical survival responses. And so those are kind of commonly known as maybe fight, flight, freeze. We're not going to get specifically into what those are. That could be a webinar for another time. But that's what we commonly see when we're kind of outside of our optimal zone. And so, as we mentioned, this framework categorizes these responses into either hyper activation, so more energy, more activation, or hypo, so lower, slower, less emotional reaction. And we really just want to highlight here that survival responses are designed to keep us safe. These are normal and they are hardwired into our nervous systems. And so there's nothing wrong with you. These are designed to keep us safe in moments or experiences or prolonged periods of stress. However, these experiences of extreme trauma and stress create responses and maybe patterns that stick with us, even if we're no longer in that situation. If that experience or event has passed, maybe we are currently in a safe situation, but it takes a lot longer for our nervous system, our cognitive process, all the wiring in our brains and our bodies to unlearn and rewire. And so, again, there's nothing wrong with you. These are normal responses. Um, and so, like I said, your body doesn't necessarily know the difference. So this can generate fear and anxiety, or that your body could actually trigger some of those defenses. And we'll get into what some of those things look like. And again, really want to reiterate, your nervous system does not know that the trauma or stress is no longer occurring. And so hopefully what having this framework for the window of tolerance can do is just provide awareness and allowing us to be more curious and compassionate with ourselves about what is going on in our bodies and just being able to work with what is coming up for us in the moment. And so there's a different visualization. Um, again, like we said, take what works. There's going to be different visuals or metaphors that work for different people. So this one is an actual window kind of with the windows open. So the idea would be that if you're in your window of tolerance, your window's open, there's a beach, there's a palm tree, there's maybe some clouds in the distance. Maybe there's going to be some days where your windows are shut. It's going to fluctuate. Um, and so, again, highlighting that stress and trauma can shrink your window of tolerance. And you may be thrown off balance a little bit more easily when you are outside of your optimal zone. However, when you work and start doing this healing work with yourself or eventually with a counselor, a therapist, you can make it bigger and you can stay calm, more focused, more alert, even when there are things that are going to be stressful, because that is the inevitable part of life. There are going to be stressors, but understandably, if we've experienced extreme stress or we're still in that situation now, yeah, it's going to be hard because We only can do so much with what we've been given, and we only know what we know. Um, and so, yeah, really wanting to highlight self-compassion here, and yeah, just being gentle with yourself, because this is all probably very brand new for a lot of people. So I'm going to turn it over to Lara now.
Awesome. So, yeah, so we've heard about hyperactivation, hypoactivation, a little bit about what they are. So, let's kind of go into a little bit more about like what does that actually look like? What's actually happening when you get into those states. So for the picture here, we have a little man with a mustache, it looks like, who looks like he's deciding between fight and flight, or his brain is deciding for him, and he feels like everyone is watching him. There's a bunch of little eyes around, a lot of bright colors, a little bit overwhelming. So I think the picture fits really well with kind of the essence of hyperactivation. Um, so hyperactivation refers to when someone's activation level goes above what their window can manage. So this leads to an overactive stress response. So this can look different for everybody. For some people, it can be like a bodily activation, so like shakes, fidgeting, pacing. It can even look kind of like a panic attack or an anxiety attack, so shortness of breath and chest pain, things like that. It can also be mind activation as well, so trouble focusing, trouble maintaining attention, racing thoughts, and just kind of feeling like on edge or feeling like, like you have to be hyper vigilant, I guess. Um, as well as intense emotional responses. So that can be feeling angry, irritable, or even intense fear in the form of anxiety or a panic attack. Um, so as an example of this, um, I don't know if anyone, can relate with this, but I feel like most people can. But, when you've just kind of had like a really hard day, you're feeling overwhelmed, you want to be alone and decompress, and you find yourself getting really snippy or annoyed with small things that other people do. So, like maybe a negative comment from a friend or a roommate, or if like someone cuts you off in traffic, kind of like sends you over the edge. It's like usually that wouldn't really bother you that much, but you're just kind of pushed above your window of tolerance a little bit. So basically it's like, yeah, something that wouldn't usually bother you. But for some reason it's just really having an effect on you today. This might be a time when you've experienced kind of exceeding your window of tolerance.
Okay. Still good, Michaela? Any questions?
Um, I'm just clarifying one question, so maybe go to the next slide and then we'll come back to it.
All right.
All right. So hypoactivation is kind of, I would say, the opposite. So it's when you go below your window of tolerance. So in this picture here, we have a woman who looks like she might be going through maybe a depressive state. She's looking kind of nervous, like she might just be having a bad day. So yeah, so if we think about hyperactivation, it's going above. Hypoactivation is going below instead. So this means that your activation level has fallen below your lower limit, and you're actually having an underactive stress response rather than an overactive stress response. So kind of similar to the other one, these kind of have physical, emotional symptoms or things that you might notice in yourself. It can include things like fatigue, low energy, difficulty getting motivated, feeling disconnected from yourself or others or your environment, or even depression and sadness. So I guess as an example, if anyone's ever had one of those days where you feel just like really low energy, kind of like you're moving in slow motion, find it really hard to get out of bed, or you just can't seem to get anything done. You might be feeling numb or disconnected from people, like you're not really present, you're just kind of there. Um, this can also look like zoning out a lot, or like things you usually care a lot about don't seem as important today. This might be a time when you're experiencing hypoactivation or being below your window of tolerance.
Mm. So, just why are we learning about it? Why is this important, or how can this be helpful? Aside from us being biased and being in the healing therapy community, wanting to reiterate why it's helpful for you folks that are here with us or watching the recording. So, understanding how we feel both emotionally and physically can just be a great place to start, and understanding where we are in our window of tolerance. Recognizing our own window, the symptoms we experience, and maybe kind of like the severity that it has for us. Um, it is a big skill in the healing process. Takes a lot of time, takes patience and practice. Um, but even without, if we have a lack of awareness, it can be difficult to try and regulate because we don't even know where something is coming from or why something might be bothering us. Um, and so this awareness just gives us more of an opportunity to take that action, to take that step when we maybe are noticing, oh, you know what, I'm feeling a little bit dysregulated. These are the things that maybe I can do for myself. Um, and even it might not seem like a big step, it might not feel like a big deal, but self-awareness is a huge step towards just building self-compassion, and allows us to be less critical of our automatic survival responses. And so we can be, and we hear this all the time working with people, can get really stuck on, why am I doing this? Why is this happening? I hate that I do this. I hate that I am not moving forward or making progress. And hopefully, just when you start to expand your awareness of why something's happening, what's happening for you, can allow some of that self-compassion to come in and go, okay, this is what's happening for me. I might not even know why, but at least I'm aware of it, and then I can work with it rather than kind of fight against it. And so this may or may not, again, it's totally up to the individual counselor you're with or what works for you as an individual and what you connect to. But it may be a tool that's used in sessions with your counselor or therapist. But you can also do it independently, wherever you are, wherever you're at in your healing journey. There's no right or wrong or way to do it. It's just a tool that may work for you. So, how do we start this process of expanding our window of tolerance? So, learning to manage or expand our window can go a long way on your road to recovery, healing from whatever it is that you're working towards. Maybe it's trauma, maybe it's anxiety, maybe it's stress, any anything that you personally are working towards. Keeping in mind that this does take practice. There's not going to be like an overnight change, like a light switch. It's something that you just kind of have to get into the habit of, and be gentle with yourself along the way. But regularly practicing some of these things can kind of teach you to instinctively recognize what your windows of tolerance is, how you self-regulate, what works for you. Um, and yeah, it might just be a tool that you go, oh, I'm outside of my window. What can I do? So how can you expand your window? There's a couple things here. I know it's very brief, and we um, don't have time to go over every single one, because each thing could probably be an hour-long webinar on its own. Um, but the first thing is just to pay attention to bodily cues and building self-awareness. So getting into the practice of just stopping, pausing, recognize what's coming up for you, where in your body you feel those emotions, and just paying attention. Think about what you're feeling, and how does your body react? Are you noticing, oh, my heart is beating really quickly right now, or I'm feeling a sudden flush or hot sensation behind my cheeks? Am I really, really tense in my shoulders? All of these things we sometimes don't pay attention to, but they could be giving us a lot of really helpful information. Um, and very closely connected with that, and some of you might already have your own mindfulness practice that you do, but paying attention without judgment. So this is not about stopping any unwanted stress or anxiety, but just allowing those moments to pass and learning how you can best support yourself through that. It can be really hard to sit with a really difficult and uncomfortable feeling, but the longer that we stay in that, like, I want this to be over with, it needs to be over, it's almost like the worse it gets. So if we can just be a little bit mindful, but not having judgment, that can go a long way. Obviously, a lot easier said than done. None of us have this all perfectly figured out, but it is something that takes time, takes practice. And another thing, a little bit more on the kind of chemical side of things, is that we do have happiness, that's like not the official term, chemicals in our body, and there's different things that we can do to increase these. So you may be familiar with them. They're dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. Got a little graphic there on the screen of these four kind of coming out of a pink graphic of a brain with smiling, the hard eyes, a winky face, and crying, laughing. So there's so many different ways that you can do this, but engaging your creativity, doing something with art, listening to music, listening to a song, activating senses, which we'll get to in a little bit, physical touch, that could be just kind of your own self-compassionate touch, could be petting an animal, if you have one, cuddling your pet, um, hugging a friend, a child, whatever that is, getting fresh air, getting outside, putting on a funny video, laughing, doing something active, getting mindful movement. Again, this could be a whole hour-long webinar in itself, but just wanting to highlight that there is a chemical side of this too, that will can help in this process. It's all part of the kind of mind body connection. Another huge thing that does deserve more time and attention, and this is something that you will probably work on along your healing journey, but reducing shame. And so again, this is not something that can be done overnight. It's not a one and done kind of process. But for a lot of people, actively working towards self-compassion. Affirmations can be really helpful for people. Maybe you have an affirmations journal, an affirmation card deck. Some people, I know it sounds cliche, it sounds kind of lame because you've probably heard it, but from working with folks, these are the things that really work. Like write an affirmation on a post-it note, put it on your mirror, remind yourself every day. And it doesn't have to be anything super radical, like that doesn't feel that you can actually get there. It's something like, I am enough. I'm trying my best. Um, Again, easier said than done, and it can feel very daunting, but those little incremental things can really go a long way in expanding just your capacity to maybe try something else. Because a lot of this is maybe some people are sitting here like, I can't even get myself to go for the walk, or I can't even get out of bed to get fresh air. Wherever you are at in your journey, that is completely fine and okay. It's just finding that little thing that's going to get you one little step um, further and in expanding your capacity for healing. Um, and our last kind of tool or suggestion here is self-regulation skills. So for some people, that's practicing deep breathing, just remembering to take breaths, deep belly breathing, meditation. It could be a mindfulness meditation, or it could be like a intentional sitting down, doing a meditation, listening to a tape or an app. Um, Again, there's so many different things that work for so many different people. There's no kind of one size fits all when it comes to self-regulation skills. Activating the senses. We're going to be practicing a tool towards the end. Grounding, just again, however that works for you. And getting in the practice of just if you're noticing negative thoughts or you're speaking very unkindly to yourself, challenging those thoughts, reframing them. I am doing enough, or I can do this hard thing, whatever that looks like for you. Um, these are all ways that you can slowly kind of begin to expand your window. I recognize that there's like so much information, might be a little info overload. Do you just want to hang back a second, make sure we're still good? If there's any questions. Okay, guess we're good to keep going. And again, like Michaela said, this will all be recorded. You can access it another time. And if you're interested in having the slides, we can find a way to get that to you as well. So here we are with another visual. Like we said, there's so many different ways that you can understand this for yourself and conceptualize it in a way that works and clicks for you. That's kind of the beauty of metaphor. There's so many things that are just adaptable and you can make it work for you. So another way that we can conceptualize this is by using a thermometer and kind of thinking of those different states as temperatures, because there's a lot of ways that you can connect your emotional responses to temperatures: hot, cold, neutral, boiling, freezing. So I wanted to offer that here. This is from an online therapist, Tiffany Rowe. If people are interested, they can always explore that. And so this infographic just highlights common symptoms within each state and offers different ways to kind of manage and cope when you maybe feel like you're operating outside of your window. So very similar to the graphic of the window or that unicorn floaty going down the stream. This would be like the middle moderate temperature. You're in your window of tolerance, you're socially engaged, you can cope, you're calm, alert, coherent, relaxed, alert but not anxious. You can take in information. Going up into the kind of hot or the hyper, that's when we get that anxiety, panic, fight, fleeing, those responses. So some things that you can do: dim the lights, fidget, write something down, do some gentle yoga, just try and do deep breaths, slow your nervous system. Similar to what we'd mentioned before, give yourself a hug. There's lots of different kind of somatic self holds that you can try, or even just putting your hands on your chest. That can be really soothing. You be your own kind of physical container. A scent like lavender, something that is gonna just bring a sense of calm and peace. And then on the other side, if we kind of go down that thermometer into the cool, the hypo, the more numbed kind of freeze state, this is where those may be depressive or dissociative responses might come in. And so again, some things that you can do for yourself: try and increase your heart rate, listen to maybe some louder music or upbeat music, really focus on grounding, press your feet into the ground, just get moving, watch something funny, listen to something, anything that's going to kind of get you back into that regulated state, increase your heart rate a little bit, get the blood flow. All are different things that you can do to kind of bring yourself up, which we've talked about a lot. But again, another way to conceptualize this, visualize this: there is no one size fits all. There's no right or wrong. It's figure out what works for you. And so that's why we wanted to offer many different ways of looking at this, because there's different things are going to connect to different people. So, as we've been kind of teasing this whole time, we're going to do some actually practice. And this may be something people have done before, maybe not, but it's always a good reminder.
Yeah.
So sorry to interrupt.
No
Maybe
problem.
before we get into a grounding exercise, we'll just kind of put out a reminder if anybody has any questions. Now would be a great time to pop those in the Q&A, and then after we go through the exercise, we can take a look at all of those.
Yeah.
Awesome. So let's practice something. So as Brynne mentioned, so like grounding techniques, connecting with your senses, those sort of things are a great way to kind of help manage your activation level, both in the hyper and the hypo direction. This is because it helps to shift your focus from your thoughts to your immediate sensory experiences and kind of bring you into the present, kind of where you are in the moment, bring you back into your body, what you're feeling and what you're experiencing. So I feel like a lot of people have probably heard of this exercise, especially if you've been, with any of our therapists. I feel like this is kind of a pretty standard one that a lot of people really like to work with because it's so easy. So this is called the 5-to-1 exercise. So the way it works is pretty simple. And it can be a great tool to be used almost anywhere because it doesn't really require any movement or any speaking or noise. And it can really be kind of, I guess, altered to fit what you need. So whether it be like speaking out loud or writing something down or just kind of speaking in your head or just noticing things, just kind of making it fit to what you feel like you need in that moment. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through each of our senses. So sight, touch, hearing, smell, and taste, and name some of the things that we perceive. So to start, we're going to start with things that we can see. So I want everyone to kind of take some time, kind of thoughtfully look around what's in the room with you, and name 5 things that you can see. So take your time, be thoughtful about it. What do you notice about each item? What draws your eye to it? So for me personally, I can see that I have my cup of water here that's pink and sparkly. I picked it because I liked it because it was pink and sparkly. I can see that there's a fake plant in the room, which kind of gives the room a bit more life in it. Some art on the wall that I think is really nice. What about you, Brynne?
Um, I can see directly in front of me behind the computer is this photo called Rhythm. It's like of these kind of desert sand. I find I always look at it and it's really grounding. There's a red lamp on my desk. Um, some dried flowers.
Mhm. Awesome. Yeah, so take some time, give it some thought, kind of sit with it a bit, really describe it. What does the texture look like? What is the color? What draws you to it? Um, and then we'll move on to the next one. So next, we're going to identify 4 things that you can touch. So this can be like what you can feel on your body. So whether it be like your clothing, your shoes, or things that you can reach out and touch or that are around you or that you can pick up and grab. Um, so kind of like what texture does that item have? What does it feel like in your hand or on your skin? So one example for me is that I can feel my shoes on my feet right now. And I can feel that my laces are tied just a little bit too tight. And they're digging into my ankles a little bit. I also know I can touch this cup that I have beside me as well, and that it has kind of a cool texture, or that, the chair beside me has this padding and it feels smooth. Um, so what about you, Brynne?
Yeah, I've just been noticing. I don't even know what like fabric this is, but the armchairs on the chair I'm sitting in are soft. Um, yeah, I'm very much like a doodler, so if like I have a pen that I really like the feel, this one is like, I don't know, it's very smooth. Um, yeah, I can
Awesome.
feel the headset on my ears.
Awesome. All right. So now we can move on to 3 things that you can hear. Um, so kind of like, what do you hear around you right now? Can you identify where the sound is coming from? What does that sound bring up for you? Is it pleasant? Is it annoying? So right now I can kind of hear the air going in this room. I can hear the air conditioning going. I can also hear the cars outside, that are quite loud. I'm sure Brynne might be able to hear the similar things to me. I know she's in the same buildings.
Yeah, I hear you speaking.
Yeah.
Um, if I focus really, really hard, I can hear like the distant hum of our noise machine
Hmm.
in the background.
Yeah.
I can hear my stomach growling because it's like ready for a snack. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Awesome. Love it. So yeah, take some time. What do you hear? Is it a good sound? Is it super annoying and something that you wish would go away? Um, what do you sense around you? Um, and then next, so we'll do 2 things that we can smell. So what are 2 things you can smell right now? So I know right now I can actually smell the soap on my hands from when I wash my hands, which smells really nice, smells like vanilla. Um, Other than that, I can kind of just smell, the building in general, the air around the building, nothing too specific. I'm not sure if Brynne can smell anything different than me.
Yeah. I have a whole desk drawer full of fun stuff. I've got this lip balm that has a very intense scent. It's berry citrus. So I was like, ah, that is a nice kind of grounding scent.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah, so again, like take some time, like is it a good smell? Is it a bad smell? Do you know where it's coming from? Um, yeah. And then last but not least is taste. So what do you taste right now? So was it something you ate recently or maybe toothpaste or gum? What does it kind of make you think of? Do you know where it came from, hopefully? Um, so for me, I had gum before I started this, so I can kind of taste the mint in my mouth still. I'm not sure if anyone else has any different, um, I guess, tastes that are coming up.
Mm. Mine was coffee. Still got
Mm,
some from this morning. I know it's like
classic.
already 3:20, but
Yeah, classic. I feel like a lot of
yeah.
us can understand that, the feeling of coffee in your mouth afterwards. Um, but yeah, so now that we've kind of gone through all of that, now take some time and kind of check in with yourself. So, do you feel differently compared to before when we started this exercise? For me, I do feel more calm and more aware of kind of like my physical presence, where my hands are, kind of my senses, my physical senses. And I do feel a little bit more connected to the environment around me. And so yeah, take some time, check in, see, like, this is helpful. Would I find that helpful? And again, like Brynne said, like none of these are kind of like overarching, they're gonna work for everybody. Some people might try them and be like, this didn't help at all, and that's totally fine. Um, but like Brynne gave us a huge list, there's a lot of different things that you can try out and see if they work for you. Um, but yeah, this is just one kind of simple example of like a grounding technique that can help to bring you closer to your window of tolerance if you're kind of feeling over or under, and get you reconnected with your bodily senses.
Awesome. And so, that's kind of takes us to the end of our formal informational part of the webinar, but would definitely encourage people to ask questions or even give comments or feedback, or if there's a
Mhm.
grounding technique or something that you've tried that really works for you and you want
Yeah.
us to share with the group, like it can be really helpful to kind of spread the knowledge. We're in no way experts, and you're the expert in your own life, and if there's
Mhm.
something that you're like, this is great, I want other people attending to know, just type it in. Um, yeah, so we'll give a few minutes for that. Um, while that's trickling in, just kind of point out what we have on the slide. Just information about where we are located, how to connect with us. We have a website, which is great. We've got a awesome engagement team and someone that works really hard to put together content online. Pretty active on Instagram, I would say. I think that's also linked to Facebook as well, so you can find all information about upcoming groups and workshops and future webinars on our website. Sign up for the newsletter. Um, yeah, so that's all there for folks who are interested. But yeah, we're happy to take questions. Hopefully we can answer them.
Yeah, so I don't see anything coming in. Um, but with that said, if you're watching this after the fact or over the next couple of days, if things come up for you, don't hesitate to reach out. You can send us an email to our info email and just mention the webinar in the subject line, and we will make sure that it gets to someone who can answer your question. Um,
Yeah.
and then, and then the other thing is I'll just mention this. I'm probably stealing your slide here, Lara.
No, you go for it.
You'll see on the screen the QR code for the evaluation. After, we would really appreciate if you would do the survey. It gives us a lot of very helpful information. If you're watching on your phone and you can't scan the QR code, after we're finished here, I will send out a link to everyone with the link for the survey that you can just click and follow.
Yeah, and it's totally anonymous. So yeah, be honest. We love feedback. We want to give people the resources and the tools that you want. And so giving your voice and telling us what you want is the best way to make that happen.
Okay, so if there aren't any other questions at this time, I think we will start to wrap things up.
Yeah, just have a brief sources slide there. There's nothing like super, like clinical or anything that's not easily accessible for anyone out there. If you are interested in it, yeah, keep just, yeah, Googling, see what you find. Yeah, I know we're like a little earlier than anticipated, but that's okay.
Yeah. So just a final thank you to Brynne and Lara for sharing their knowledge, and thank you to all of you for attending, and thank you for your questions. And we hope to see you next month at our webinar. The information for that one will be coming out shortly. Okay,
Awesome.
so with that, we will end the meeting. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Didn't know student psych was there. Was the guy? Oh no, yesterday. Yeah, the guy that I saw yesterday was like sharing his personal story, and he hadn't marked himself as anonymous. Oh, this was the guy. That wait, yeah. Isn't like done? You just have to leave the meeting.